Ready to hit the pause button on your parenting fails? Ready to feel better about your parenting? Welcome to Parenting Pause, the podcast, where all of you is welcome and where you can listen in on how other parents became the parents they always dreamed of being. I'm Leslie Potter, the founder of the Pure Joy Parenting Way. I'm a mother, a parenting coach, and a fellow traveler on this journey to wake up in our parenting. And I believe together we can make this a better world for ourselves and our kiddos. Oh, I've been looking so forward to our conversation to hear how you have shifted in your parenting after all these years. What was going on in your home that made you want to explore this view of parenting?
I think about that time, my youngest was almost 2. My middle child was 7, and my oldest was 12. And we were struggling in a relationship with my spouse and with our kids. I was struggling at school. I really felt like the expectation to fit in and make the kids comply with the expectations of the school was impacting our relationship with our kids. And I remember feeling really desperate, really desperate, to the point where I was looking to experts. And I called you for your free consultation, and I knew right there that I found somebody that kind of understood what we were going through. And I'd had so much judgment for myself. The last thing I needed was more of that. And I really needed your compassion. So
I remember
that's what hooked me.
I remember that first phone call. I remember you sitting at your kitchen table, and I think we did a Skype. And it was such a beautiful session to be able to sit with you and your curiosity and your deep commitment to wanting to shift how you were parenting and how your home was. So maybe you could speak a little to us about what you actually wanted to change.
Well, we have, like I said, 3 kids. So we had, and they're all 5 years apart. So we had one in each different developmental stage, which was a challenge in itself. I had one heading into the teens, and she was feeling challenged by her teacher, and she was expected to do certain assignments, and she didn't see the value in it and wasn't interested in those assignments. So when she challenged her teacher, it meant that we needed to come in and also try to get her to comply, and that wasn't working, and that was really hurting our relationship with her. At the same time, her 7-year-old was not wanting to go to school. So our mornings were rough, trying to get everybody in the car and get there on time. And I was judging myself so harsh for the way I was feeling like I was treating them. I even called myself a monster at times because I would just lose it, trying to make sure that we were looking good, we were on time and complying, and I just knew it felt bad. It felt really bad, and I didn't want this for my kids, and I didn't want this for my family. So that was where the desperation came in.
Do you think at first that you wanted to change their behavior, or did you have a sense that there was something going on inside for you?
Oh, absolutely. It was them.
Right.
I thought it was all about them. We were sure that our middle child was going to end up in all kinds of trouble because he was challenging us so much.
You were really hoping that you were going to be able to find a way to control, because he was exhibiting quite a lot of aggression, right, in the home.
Yeah, I think he was pretty angry at us. We were trying to control him. And
so what do you think was driving that for you? Because I like to talk to people about in this work, we really try to understand what feelings are driving our behavior. So what were some of those core feelings that you became aware of during this process that you knew were driving that strong need to control?
Definitely a lot of fear of not doing it right, fear of looking bad, fear of judgment, fear of screwing them up.
Yeah. So it sounds like it played out in your parenting and that y'all were going to, get this kid to be non-aggressive. And it sounds like the more that you tried to control his behavior, the more aggressive he got.
We tried a lot of different things even. We, besides the things like setting him in his room and isolation and probably shame, and we took him to the professionals who wanted to medicate and diagnose and medicate him, and that didn't feel right either.
Yeah, well, when you got to me, you were kind of in that exploration mode of, okay, we've tried all this stuff, so I'm willing to go a little bit on the edge. And I remember you joined one of my very first parenting groups.
I think there were 5 of us women, and we are still in connection. Really grateful for that group. It was really nice to be able to talk to other women who were struggling with the same issues, and it was just so authentic and real, and I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, it seemed to normalize what you were going through, right? I think all the women in there each had their own struggles. They might have had different behaviors that they were struggling with, but it began to normalize and take some of the isolation away. And you really took on the SafeSeat process very deeply. I remember. And for those that are listening for the first time here, I have a core process, a foundational process called the SafeSeat, which you are welcome to download for free on my website. You can just go to the podcast that you're listening to, and there will be a link there. But maybe you could speak a little bit about your experience of taking that on. I know it became quite a beautiful refuge for you.
It took me a while. I mean, we talked about it every week, and it was definitely a practice, and it's still a practice. And I still have your flyer, your beautiful flyer about it on the refrigerator to remind me. I struggled a lot because my own childhood, we didn't really resolve issues. It was usually just everybody went their own ways. And so I didn't know how to resolve issues, but I knew how to abandon. That was the only thing I knew how to do to make the situation feel safe. But with your SafeSeat practice, I learned to have a seat and regulate. So I was able to stay there, stay in the room, stay in it, and connect with my feelings, and it actually helped me to heal the wounded young parts of me, because I could connect with her to see what was coming up.
Maybe you could describe what that actually looks like, because I know this is kind of a concept. The safe seat concept or the process is we take ourselves to a safe base when we're triggered instead of acting out with our children. But especially, I'm sure a lot of people would like to hear when your son was being quite aggressive or screaming or yelling, what that looked like.
Well, before I learned how to SafeSeat, it was to walk him to his room and put him in it, and sometimes I'd hold the door shut, and we'd both be in tears, and it just felt really bad. And with the SafeSeat practice, I had my spot on the couch, and I would just go sit in it. And in the beginning, he didn't understand. I'd explain to him, but I think he just didn't really trust that I was staying present or being there, and he would come over and kind of test me on it. Yeah, it was a really interesting process to see him begin to learn to trust me, that I was not going to abandon him. So I would sit there, and he would get to see me regulate and be with my feelings. Once I was able to be regulated, then I could try to have a conversation with him and recover.
As you say, it's a discipline. It's a really growing, because usually when we're triggered, we're going to go into our habituation, and sounds like your habituation from your childhood was to move into control. So when I feel discomfort and I'm disturbed inside, if I can control the external, that's the belief system, because you believed that your son was causing that disturbance. And therefore, if you could lock him up or put him in his room or time him out, then get him to behave, then maybe you wouldn't have to be present, as you say, and alive in your own experience. And this is the beautiful part about the safe seat, because it's really, you weren't as much abandoning your children as you were abandoning your own experience.
Right. I definitely did not want to feel what I was feeling.
Well, that was very smart to do. I always like to tell people, most likely as a child, you could not tolerate those intense feelings. So, actually, avoiding, leaving, whatever our early strategies are, were very smart strategies as a young child. And yet, now in your parenting, you were needing to show up as the adult. And that's really hard to do when we're triggered.
Yes, I remember reverting back to certain ages and having even my daughter call me out on it and tell me, "Mom, you look like a 5-year-old," and I felt like a 5-year-old.
Well, maybe you could share a little bit about, like, how it looks today, because we're talking 7 years on here.
What a huge, huge difference. I mean, now my children are 9, 14, and almost 20, and our relationship with our daughter is amazing. She's going to be 20. If we had continued going the way we were going, there's no way we would be where we are now. She can talk to us about anything, things that I would have talked to my parents about.
And you had to give up a lot to get there, right? Maybe you could speak just a
Yes,
little bit about what you had to give up.
I had to give up my reliance on other people because there was a point where we had a therapist saying, we need to take her in somewhere for treatment. Yeah, and we decided, well, we're not gonna do that, and we decided to go with what we felt right, and we kept her at home, and we worked on our relationship, which we've been doing, and it paid off.
I mean, what did that look like?
Really learning to be present and trying to hear them and allowing them their feelings. That was the biggest one. We had a habit of wanting to shut them down when they were expressing their feelings. If we could just be okay with what was coming up in us when they were expressing their feelings and accepting what was coming up for both of us, it really helped shift the relationship.
Yeah, and I really want parents to hear this, that this is a capacity issue. We have to learn to, what Angelina is saying is that she built her own capacity to be able to tolerate what was arising in her. And a lot was arising, as you can imagine, when her daughter was struggling and she began to feel so much. But the more that she was able to tolerate her own experience of feeling, she was able to meet and be present with her daughter's experience without letting that fear overwhelm you.
She had been in a private Waldorf school from fourth grade through eighth grade, and she, for some reason, did not resonate with it and was looking forward to public school. I think maybe she thought she was looking out or missing out on something. So she was really looking forward to public high school, and we were not. But she wanted the experience so badly. We wanted to support her in that, and as much as I offered her to just stay home with us, we'll homeschool or something else, and she didn't want that either. So she had this experience of public high school, and it was intense. She learned about cutting. She brought home a lot of peers that were struggling in their own homes. It was a real eye-opener. And towards the end, they told her she wasn't going to graduate. And she decided on her own that she would just go to the library and start taking all the classes online. And they said that wouldn't work. She would never be able to do it in time. And she did it anyway. And she graduated.
And how was that like for you? What did you have to do to ride that? Because that was her experience.
Yeah,
And
it was so intense. I mean, I was really scared, especially, there was alcohol and drugs and cutting, and it was all very scary. And to see her now, like letting her have those experiences and then supporting her in them and being there when she was disappointed with how her experiences went, instead of judging her, that's been a huge one for me. I'm so grateful to be able to get away from that judgment and to know that I know how to support her now.
But it takes so much courage. I mean, that's just what I keep hearing is that in doing your internal work, that you were able to separate out your experience. Of course, you didn't want your daughter to have that experience, but you were able to stay with yourself and stay present with that fear instead of trying to control her so you didn't feel the fear. And therefore, even though she had to go through some deeply challenging experiences, that she didn't do it alone. Well, it's really, really supportive when parents can get on the same page, and yet I know for you and your partner at the time that that was quite a challenging journey also to actually come together. You were kind of leading the charge, and I know it was quite difficult for him at first. Maybe you could speak to that just for a moment.
Yes. Yeah, he was a little resistant to wanting to try something different because, that's just most people resort to control and yeah, he was definitely resistant and I know that he challenged you a bit. um,
Just a bit.
and you were so amazing that you were able to work with him in a way that he didn't feel judged and I think it helped him. He must have felt the compassion that I felt and was able to feel safe with you because he's, I would say, a whole different person as far as that parenting part and the fear, as I am, because of the work we've done with you. And now he works with you in a whole different way, which is amazing to me. And so that I feel like the blessing there is that he can support other dads who also feel resistant.
So give us a little glimpse into how it is with your amazing 14-year-old son at this moment.
He's definitely not the same child. He is amazing, and we have an amazing relationship with him now. It's so beautiful. We don't have the blow-ups ever anymore. I mean, there might be some expression of anger or feelings, and we can sit with that now. And he can express, and we are grateful when he does. And we work through things, and we resolve things so much better. I mean, it is still a practice, but my goodness, I mean, if he's grown up to be as tall as he is now and still expressing the anger that he was, it would be a nightmare. And now he's becoming this beautiful young man who he obviously feels safe.
Well, I think that's one of the
And
powers of this work is that once we're able to separate out and attend to what's arising in us, we don't have to see our children as disrespectful or threatening us or trying to, be rude or mean or whatever. And you guys have done this so incredibly well. Because I know when you first started, especially on the male side, it was very, very difficult to feel challenged and to feel disrespected and to feel demeaned. And I remember when I came up there to visit you guys with your younger one, you felt he was demanding. There were so many feelings on your side. And I just applaud both of you for doing such deep work where you could separate out and realize when your son is expressing that it is not personal, that he is not attacking you, that he is still young and he is still learning ways to be able to express. And by being able to have you present with him, that he has grown so much in that capacity to express in more appropriate ways, where others can hear him.
definitely.
Well, I'm so, so grateful that you've been able to share with us today. I know it really helps me, and I know it helps all the mamas and the papas who are listening to hear the longer term effects of this parenting. Maybe if you had anything that you could share that you've grown the most or learned the most during this time together, what might it be?
Trusting in myself, that's been my biggest lesson when I was looking everywhere outside of myself.
Thank you. So love that you're here.
And honored. Thank you for asking me.
Thanks to Angelina for sharing her struggles in parenting and how she began to trust herself instead of looking outside for guidance. Parenting Paused is produced by Kim Paletti at Sound Mind Productions. Music by Jan Perchik. You can find the show notes at www.purejoyparenting.com, where you'll get access to the foundational practice of Pure Joy, the SafeSeat, and find links to relevant topics, as well as a transcription of the show. And if this work inspires you and you would like to practice, come join us in my free Pure Joy Parenting Practice group. You'll find the link in the show notes. Thank you for being here today and listening to the Parenting Pause podcast, your partner and support in finding the joy in yourself and with your children. And remember, if you're about to scream, pause.